Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Aftermath Show number 7. So it's been a while since we've had one of these Aftermath shows. I did try to actually get one done a few days ago, but unfortunately that didn't really go as planned, so had to postpone that one, and we're back doing another one now. So we've got a few shows to talk about. In the meantime, we are joined by Globe Earther, Aaron from Australia, and we are joined by Sleeping Warrior. Are you both there?
Hey.
Hey.
Hey Randy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Now, when I put a call out for essentially a Globe Earther to come on and be the voice of reason for the Globe. So somebody that could come on and wouldn't be, how would you say it, too triggered. So you said you were this man, you were the man for it, and so I welcome that. We had a bit of a chat before, and you seem very reasonable. So do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. My name's Aaron. I've been listening to the Flat Earth, Round Earth, Spherical Earth theme for about 4 years, and I think I probably disagree with as many people on Flat Earth as I do Spherical Earth. So I think that's where I'll come from, being quite fair. I'm not pretty unbiased when it comes to tolerating idiots. I don't come from a scientific background. I don't have the brains of Rumpus or Stingray or anything like that when it comes to being able to explain complexities of things. But I thought I'd put my hand up and give you a hand and let you know how I feel from a Spherical Earth point of view. I try to catch as many of the episodes as I possibly can. So I should be able to give you, I think, what is an average Spherical Earth person's opinion, rather than some of the characters that you have that are on more regularly.
Well, thank you very much for that. And Sleeping Warrior, I hope you've got your your head on this evening, because we have a show later. Do you want to tell the audience what we've got later?
So Rumpus has been summoned for making a claim that I believe contradicts current science, and he's cornered. And because he's obviously, when Rumpus is cornered, he refuses to let the other person talk, and he obfuscates to death so that the point gets lost, so that he doesn't go down with a loss. And there's only one way really to deal with that, and it's to not have a conversation with him. And that's what I chose to do last time when Stingray wanted something presenting to him on our side. I joined to present something to him. Rumpus wouldn't shut up, so I just decided that I would be wasting my time, so I left. I then caught up with Stingray. We had a good back and forth, and we got closure on the point. And that's what I'd rather have. I'd rather have points getting closed off, personally. And because Rumpus is refusing to play fair, the only way we can do it is to change things a little bit, literally shut him up for a bit, so that I can make my point, and then give him a chance to respond to the point that I made. So it's ended up being a bit like a court scene where both sides present their points, and then there's a back and forth afterwards without interruption, because it's the only way we're going to be able to. Now, I believe I've got Rumpus cornered. I believe he's not going to be able to get out of it without waffling his way through it and obfuscating the point. But it's not fair that he interrupts me whilst I'm executing him with my compass to his eyes. So the idea is to try and get closure on points without the obfuscation tactics that are clearly in play. So 11 o'clock, me and Rumpus, I'm going to make an assertion that he's cornered by current science, and I want to see how he deals with it. Is he going to deny and weasel his way out, or is he going to say, well, yeah, maybe you are maybe you are right there, or maybe he's just going to accuse me of being stupid and not understanding some part of this. But either way, if we can have closure on points, I think that's a lot better than not getting points closed off because of obfuscation tactics.
Yeah, exactly. Just to go through the format and explain again what's actually happening. So, in just under 2 hours' time, so 11 p.m. London time, the Rumpus has been summoned to a new show that I'll be doing for the first time. So don't slaughter me over my handling of it, because it will be my first time, and I will be doing my best to be as unbiased as I always am. So essentially what's going to happen is Sleeping Warrior is going to outline his case, what he feels that the rumpus is. He's obviously putting out information, and Sleeping Warrior doesn't agree with the information that he's putting out, and he's going to bring him to court to do this. So he's going to make his opening case. The rumpus can then have a chance to respond, both uninterrupted. Then we're going to sit the rumpus down in the hot seat, and Tony's going to have little Rumpus's toes held to the fire for a full 15 minutes. So Rumpus, there'll be no questions asked for the Rumpus at this point. It will just be Sleeping Warrior asking questions and trying to get a closure on whatever line of questioning he's hoping to lead the Rumpus down. So ultimately it'll be just my position to make sure that the Rumpus doesn't obfuscate and doesn't try and manipulate the questions in some way or act dumb or anything like that. Literally, I just want questions answered. It's not difficult. Just answer questions as truthfully as you can. So we're going to see how this works. We're going to see how it plays out. Obviously, Rumpus is a master tactician, as you all know. So whether or not we can actually get him to answer questions is another thing. But this is a new thing that I'm trying out. So let's see how this goes. Anyway, Flatball, bring back Drunk Ranty, lol. Yeah, I was quite pissed. I have to agree.
Don't bring back Drunk Ranty. Leave Drunk Ranty in the bin.
Right, okay, so let's go back to the format. So you guys, I assume, have been in around some of these shows that we've done recently. So we had Brian's Logic against Crow. Now, the thing with that is you guys might not have known what actually went on there, but essentially it was a very mellow back and forth. There was no real argument. It was titled as a fight night. It was about the solar analemma, and there was interesting points raised on both sides. Did you both get to see that?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Well, me personally, I think it's a moot point. I think that the arguments can be interpreted either way, and without being able to demonstrate which way it should be on one model compared to which way it is real world, and compared and contrasted it with two models, taking into account atmospheres, taking into account refraction, all that stuff that we know that we argue about daily. Ultimately, I don't think it's a point that can be won either way. You could interpret it either way, and I don't think anybody can honestly say that they know which one's right or wrong, because it is. You can, like I say, you can interpret it either way.
So, Aaron, what did you think? You've seen Brian. You've heard Brian. He's the Irish guy, and we had Crow XE. How do you think their chat went, and what do you how do you think they've done their presentations?
Look, I agree with Riley a lot about that. Look, they knew their content really, really well, and they both. It's a concept or something that's not easy for garden variety people to understand. It's hard to picture things in your mind when they're going through it and the complexities of it, unless you have a fair understanding about what they were talking about. So unless you're into analemas, and I think there was a lot of people out in the public that just would have got lost in that, and I was certainly one of them. Yeah, they were really pleasant guys, and I think they were respectful of each other. But yeah, as Riley said, it's kind of a moot point. It's hard, unless you know it backwards, you can't really say one of them is right or the other one is right and one is wrong, or who's right or wrong. You can't. It's very hard to take sides. So I found it hard to follow. But yeah, it was a respectful discussion, which is always nice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for me personally, I've never really heard of the subject. I've heard of it, and I've never really paid much attention to it. But I think just listening to both their presentations, we were able to get for me personally, I was able to get a decent grasp of what they were both trying to say. So I do agree. Though I do agree, it's at the moment it's one of these. It's just another 50-50. It's like there was no clear winner in my opinion. There's more work needed for sure. The one thing we do know is that the globe model's never going to change. So the only possible chance of any kind of improvement you would imagine would be from the flat Earth perspective. Anyway, then we had a chit chat, and it's titled "High School Teacher Gets." Hang on, let me see what it's titled. High School Teacher Gets Destroyed. Tony, do you want to say a little bit about what actually went down there?
High School Teacher Gets Destroyed. Oh, conspiracy cats for gas pressure, was it?
Yes, it was, yeah. He had to do a retraction video, didn't he?
For me, this is I remember. For me, this is like the one argument that really, when ballers say like, "Give me your best proof that the Earth's not a sphere," this point is it. And when I hear a high school teacher, and bear in mind there are high school teachers that teach physics on both sides, I don't know how the ball earthers can like ignore the issue. The issue's simple. To have gas pressure, there has to be a container. Gravity isn't enough. But how do you have gas pressure if there's a ball existing in the vacuum of space? And for me, Conspiracy Cat's made a mistake, sure, and he made a mistake 2 or 3 times, and he did get it wrong. He got confused, and I think he conflated terms accidentally, and he demonstrated on that occasion that he made a mistake. The mistake's not really the issue. The issue is that if he doesn't get the gas pressure point as a teacher, for me it's like, how can you defend the position if you don't really understand it? I mean, we have a gas pressure in the vacuum of space, right? It doesn't care whether it's a suck or a blow. Who cares? The point is, we have gas pressure, apparently, according to the fact that we're breathing. There has to be containment, because that is the cause of gas pressure, containment of some kind. And we know gravity is not a force, it's an effect. So what's going on? For me, it's the biggest baller killer out there. I don't know how any baller can be a baller, to be honest.
Aaron, you had a different opinion there. I heard you say that that's not true. Yeah.
Look, I don't know how we're going to have a civil discussion, but we'll try. But
well, it's more to do with the shows rather than the arguments.
Yeah, no, but I understand that. But if I'm talking with Riley and he's making statements that I obviously disagree with, then I'm just going to have to take a breath and make sure that my wording is very precise. So everything that Riley has just said, I disagree with. You can have a gas pressure without having a container. You can have, gravity can be seen as that container. There's a whole bunch of things that round earthers, spherical earthers believe in, that Riley's never going to believe in. So the original question was around, look, you guys did a brilliant setup. You planned it very well. You worded it very carefully. You chose Rumpus because you knew that he was going to go off his nut. You knew that he was going to do it, and he fell into the trap. And Rumpus and a number of globe earthers were made to look like idiots. Bravo, congratulations, well done. Because you knew what was going to happen. You knew that Rumpus was going to call everyone an utter moron, and then you had that clip all set up, and there you go, and we all look stupid. Rumpus is, look, not every round earther loves Rumpus. There's been many times that I've just put in the chat, just shut him up because he's not doing any round earthers any favours. He's a very, very bright man, but he's also not a great advocate for spherical Earth. So you knew what was going to happen, fell into the trap. Conspiracy Cats obviously caught sight of it pretty quickly and worked out what was the right thing to do and to and correct what he had meant, and we just move on from there. But I mean, if we're going to talk about, I mean, this whole thing will be around this whole pressure thing, which is obviously Spurs has been doing for the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I heard Nathan Oakley this morning going off his nut about he's sick of it, he doesn't want to hear it anymore. And look, it's just, you guys are holding on to it.
Well, let's have a civil discourse. I mean, this is the first time I spoke with you. I have seen you around, I've seen your name loads of times, but I've never had a conversation with you. But let's just talk about it. I put it in the side chat because I'm on a limited bandwidth at the minute, so I can't really screen share. I don't think it'll work. But in the side chat, if Ranty could get it on screen, it'd be great. If you just Google into, just try it yourself as a ball earther. What is the cause of gas pressure? And the top result, which may be oversimplified, but this is what I'm asking you to help me understand. It reads: pressure is caused by the collisions between the atoms of gas and the walls of the container. So you need to have the gas and you need to have the container. Without one or the other, there is no gas pressure. And Conspiracy Cat said himself, without the balloon, there is no pressure. Can you tell me how it is possible to have gas pressure without a container?
Yeah, but it is possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. Yeah, but it's possi as I said at the beginning, Riley, I'm not a genius when it comes to science, but as a round earther, as a spherical earther, we believe that gravity is pulling the atmosphere down, and that is our container.
Okay, so you do understand, though, that gravity, as it's currently defined by Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity, it's an effect. It's not a cause. How does an effect pull the atmosphere down?
We're gonna. It's I wish you weren't my first person that I'd be talking to live on the internet, Riley, because you're very good at sticking to your point and pulling words when you know that there's a whole lot of different types of meanings to those words, but you just go on and on and on about saying, no, this is the only one meaning, and you'll argue against that.
Okay.
There is no, it's okay. I'm going to keep it nice and civil, Ranty. He's asked how I can do it. I've told you that I don't have a huge science background, but what I do know and from what I do understand is that gravity causes our atmosphere to hold tight to the Earth. As it gets higher and higher and higher, we have less and less of that gas pressure until it gets to a point which is called a vacuum. We don't describe the vacuum as a suck. The vacuum is just a place where there's nothing at all. And you guys talk about container. Tell me what your container is. If we do have gas pressure and we do have a pressure gradient, tell me, Riley, what's the container?
Well, I don't know what the container is, but I do
accept. This is where you flat earthers pull out. This is what you do. You go, oh, I don't know what the sky is. I don't know what the atmosphere is.
I'm just applying what physics. I'm just applying what physics tells us is the definite, or what physics tells us is the cause for gas pressure. But when you say gravity, I say gravity can't cause anything. Albert Einstein is the authority in his theory of general relativity, and it states that it's the effect of the curvature of space-time that is what we perceive to be gravity. But if it can't be a cause, there is no interaction, as George Musa said. There is nothing reaching out to the moon. In his Fight the Flat Earth interview, he said there is no interaction. There's nothing pulling out from the Earth to the moon. Well, if that's the case, then how is it possible that you can have a gas pressure in a vacuum of space and gravity's not pulling it back because it's not a force?
Okay, can I just intersect though for a second?
Disagree on that, Ralphie.
Yeah, I think.
No, but I want you to explain. I want you to tell me how you can get past that.
Sleeping warrior.
I want you to tell me what the container is.
Just a minute, guys.
I don't know what it is.
Hang on, guys. Listen, just a minute. This isn't for a debate. This is to just go through the. This is the aftermath show where we go through the show. So, we could have this debate on another day if you like. But as Aaron's already said, he's not 100% clued up as much as like the Rumpus or anybody like that. So it's kind of a little bit of an unfair flat Earth versus globe if you're going to go down the route of having a debate here. So is that fair enough to just hold off on that for now?
I just to be honest, I just like the civil discourse with how a normal average ball earther can get past that point, because when they say to us, what's your best proof that the Earth's flat? Well, forget about the Earth being flat. My view is that it might be a bigger ball. I'm not saying it definitely is flat. I know a lot of flat earthers don't agree with me on that. They're adamant, including Nathan. Nathan doesn't agree with me on it. It's flat. Well, okay, maybe it is. I don't know, but what I do know is that the cause of gas pressure is the container. And I know that if you ballers are genuine and sincere, when I say to you, this is the strongest argument against you, how is it explained? And you come up with gravity, and that's not a force. Albert Einstein does debunk that argument. You can't really go against it. Why can't we have that civil discourse where you at least say, I don't know.
Okay, well, let me read out this super chat because it's on the same thing. It says, prove it. Prove you can have a gas pressure without the container. Prove that the gas would not have dispersed well before any gradient ever formed in the first place. So that's from the plain reality.
We do have a pressure gradient. And
yeah,
I
but you can't have pressure gradient though.
We do though.
Yeah, but you can't have it though. That's the point. Yeah, we accept that we have it, and we know that we'll have a density gradient inside a container because the little cherry tomato thing demonstrates that. But without the container, you can't have gas pressure or a density gradient. So how is it? The fact that we have it works against you.
Riley, your density gradient or your density tower has nothing to do with pressure gradient.
It does, because without the container, there wouldn't be a density tower.
No, without the container, you'd have different types of fluid with cherry tomatoes and ping pong balls all over the floor.
Right, so without the container, there wouldn't be the density tower.
The density tower has to do with gravity and buoyancy, and it's a container that holds the liquids and the different items that you're floating within those liquids.
But
We're talking
Albert
about
Einstein
something
said
else.
gravity's not a force. How can it have anything to do with gravity and buoyancy when it's not a force? It isn't interacting with the liquids.
See, we're just going to go around in circles. You asked for a civil discussion. You asked me to explain to a certain level of an average person what they think, and I told you that as far as I know, from my scientific or lack of scientific background, our atmosphere is pulled to the Earth via gravity. Within that, we have a pressure gradient. We all agree.
So what
there's a
you're
pressure
saying then
gradient.
is, what you're saying is you don't accept that Einstein's the current science for gravity when he says that it's not a force. That's your position, right?
No, I believe that both Newtonian gravity and Einstein's gravity exist, but I'm not bright enough to understand the time-space.
Well, that's okay, and I can accept that. That's reasonable, and I'm trying to be as really polite as I can. I'm not trying to be arsey with you at all. But what I would ask is, if you think that that's acceptable as an answer, when you now know that the flat Earth position is that, well, Einstein said it's not a force, and you do need the container to have gas pressure, now that you know that that's our objection, it's up to you really to look into it yourself and say, do you know what, he's wrong because, hang on, just say he's wrong because this demonstrates that you can. And I'm telling you, there's nothing out there that allows you to have gas pressure without the container. That's why the fluids would be all over the floor.
Gas pressure and density towers are not the same thing.
Yeah, they exist by virtue of the container. They wouldn't exist without the container. So when you say density gradients exist and we have one, and I'm like, yeah, that's because we must be contained.
So what is it then, right? Riley, what's the container?
I have no idea. I don't have enough money or rockets to go and explore.
No, well then it's up to you to go and sort it out and come back with an answer to say this is our container.
That's okay, but if I had enough money like NASA have, I could. NASA have got the answers, but they're not telling us the answers. But the least you can do is accept that it does seem to be contradictory and you look into it.
No, it doesn't. And I've already looked into it to as much as my poor little brain will absolutely manage. I trust science and all of this stuff around pseudoscience and this crap that you guys go on with. I trust science. They've said that this is how it works. And as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough for me.
Science hasn't said that's how it works. There is no science for how it works on your model. That's my point. Einstein debunks your perception, mate.
Okay, can I just give another shout out to Plain Reality, who's done a follow-up question. A statement more than anything. It says it would never have formed in the first place, as the Earth was cooling and dispersing gas. It was right next to the vacuum of space. It would have just dispersed. No gradient would have formed in the first place.
So let's move on to George Netanyahu.
No. Just before that, let's just go through that, Riley. Why is there an air pressure gradient? If there is a container, why isn't it all just evened out and equalized?
Because you understand that all the gases have got something called atomic weight, right? Helium's much lighter than hydrogen, or not hydrogen. Hydrogen and oxygen are the heavier ones. Helium and I've got that wrong, haven't I? It's hydrogen and oxygen are the heavy ones. Helium and nitrogen, getting it all mixed up. Nitrogen and oxygen are the two heavy ones, and they're the ones that we have most of our breathing done with. And helium and hydrogen are the two lighter ones. By virtue of that fact, you are going to get separation between those elements, and that is where the density gradients formed. But we have the sun that's mixing it all up with this. We have the sun that mixes it all up, and the hydrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle. That makes it a dynamic system, and it all gets mushed up. That's why we have them all mixed up and we breathe them. But we have that density existing because of the container. Otherwise, it would, like you said, all the liquids will fall on the floor. There wouldn't be any gas pressure. It would just immediately disperse into space. Plain reality is absolutely right. And this is where we should move on to George Netanyahu with his gas pressure point. And let's talk about that, because that's really George's point is A, and then Nathan joined and said B. Nathan's absolutely right. The gas pressure is not limited to the Kármán line. Gas pressure would immediately disperse into the vacuum of space.
Yeah, I agree. So let's move on for the time being, guys. We can always listen to Spurs on this in the future if we want to carry on.
No, let's not ever listen to Spurs.
But I think the next one we did, the next show was the chit chat with Brenda. Now I'd like to go to you, Aaron, first. How did you feel that was? Because it was Right the Hand and Brenda, and them two had a little back and forth, and then there was a little bit of a freak out by Brenda. What do you think? What do you think about that?
So, let me just take a second to get my thoughts together. I do remember it very well. Look, my initial thing to say is that I felt physically ill at how it all unfolded, and that's not exaggerating. I actually felt sick. I do not like Right the Hand whatsoever, and I think on his little private, every time he gets on there, even when I was listening to his presentation he did the other day, he's yelling at George and he's yelling at you, Ranty, saying it's 4 o'clock. I said I was starting at 4 o'clock. I'm not waiting. His attitude is just absolute crap. From what I heard, he was abusive to Brenda. He called to her an it, and that is totally unacceptable, even for someone like me who is probably the most un-PC person I know. It was totally inappropriate. I know that you guys don't like Brenda. I don't dislike Brenda, but I don't understand why she causes you so much distress. When I hear that she's talking to you in any kind of chat, if she's on Nathan's, which she used to be a lot, she's just really being. I mean, she's definitely a shit stirrer, and I think there's this kind of bias against her, and whatever she says, you all kind of get your back up against it. What happened was really, really poor form for the internet. Right, she should have just gone away once she got upset. She should have just said that really hurt, and she should have left. And Right the Hand should never have said it in the first place. What was more upsetting was all of you guys making fun of her in the background, all having a chuckle, having a laugh, making fun of her. That was just totally inappropriate. The show should have just been stopped, and it should have just it shouldn't have gone that far. I don't understand why it went so long. And sorry for rambling so much, but that's how I felt.
Tony, what did you think?
With regards to the Brenda thing, I absolutely agree that Brenda has the absolute right to her own privacy on whatever matters that are personal to her. And that includes the sexuality, the gender, and all that nonsense. For me, it's absolutely irrelevant, and I'll defend her for that. However, she uses that as a victim card status, and I disagree with that. She copyright struck me off. She community guidelines struck me for a video that was pointing out that she was lying because she claimed that I was harassing and bullying her. And I just pointed out that she was wrong and she was deceiving people. That's not harassing and bullying. You can't use these harassing and bullying claims just because you've been shown to be wrong and lying. However, that is what she's done. So on the one hand, I absolutely encourage and agree that she has the right to be anything that she wants to be. If she wants to be a pink duck, she can be a pink duck. I absolutely live and let live. That's my view. And it's nobody else's business if she wants to be a pink duck. However, if you're going to claim stuff that's factually wrong with science, and I point that out to you, I think it's a bitch move to be able to claim victim status. And that's basically my view on the Brenda thing. Right the Hand, I don't have any comment on. I think that the gas pressure point is still really valid that Nathan brought up against George. And George is basically obfuscating the point because he wants to sound credible and intelligent with a load of explanations and maths. And we all know that gas pressure can't exist next to a differential without some kind of container. It is in the definition.
Riley, what are you doing? We're talking about Brenda. What are you doing? We're talking about the Brenda episode.
What do you want me to talk about Brenda for? I'd rather talk about points that are on topic. I'm not interested in the personal stuff. I agree that she's got a privacy that she can keep, and I don't think that Right the Hand.
We're talking about the episode and you defended Right the Hand. You said, "Oh, perhaps he's talking about it as in the discussion's gone nuts," or whatever the terminology was.
I think Right the Hand won. I think Right the Hand got her caught in a circular argument. She refused.
No one won, mate. No one won. They both look like absolute tossers.
No, Brenda needed a
No one.
distraction. Brenda needed a distraction because she got caught in a circular loop. He then called her
Are
a
you
masculine.
saying that her emotions? Are you saying that her emotions at that time were not genuine?
I'm saying that she deliberately took a distraction technique to get out of the circular reasoning that she was caught in. Yeah.
Are you saying that her emotional state at that time was not genuine? That she was not genuinely upset?
I'm saying that she found a distraction and took it because she wouldn't accept. It was either that or accept that she was caught in a circular argument that he did validly get her into.
Wow, Riley, you're quite a piece. She was genuinely upset. A piece, a person, quite a. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that you wouldn't have thought that she was genuine at that time, and that what she was saying was quite heartfelt. You don't know. I don't know. I'm not a man. I'm not a woman. Sorry, I'm not a woman. I don't know what it must be like for someone to go through that. But I think every day of her life, she gets picked on and teased and marginalized. And to have it during that time in front of, 200 people and all the people in the chat would have been quite hard for her to take. And I believe that she should have just said, look, that really hurt me. I don't think I need to be a part of this any longer. But to say that she was copping out of the argument and using it is quite a shock to me anyway.
Well, let me say it again so I'm really clear. I understand what you've just said, and I understand that you're shocked. But my position is that the hand got her caught in a circular argument, and rather than admit that she might be caught in a circular argument and therefore it was a fallacy, she needed a distraction. She took a distraction, and yes, she wasn't being sincere with her emotions. She was playing a tactical game instead. That's my view on it.
Okay, so you're entitled to your view.
Okay, so moving on, let's have a look at the... Where are we? The next show that came out would have been the application of gas law with George Netanyahu. Now that was his first attempt, and it went on for quite a while. So it was a 2 hours and 40-minute presentation essentially, and he needed to go. That was the one where he blew up the balloon with that little popper thing that expanded when he'd reached gas pressure. And I had a problem with him saying there was no gas pressure inside the balloon when he started blowing it up, because that was different to what Conspiracy Cats had just rectified in his own presentation earlier on. So that's when George had to come back. So did you think that the presentation went on for too long? Did you understand anything, or was it just going back over chemistry kind of stuff at school?
For me?
Yes. Yeah, how did you... I mean, was it things that you already knew and there was nothing really new there?
Oh, God, no. I could barely watch it. There's nothing about George Netanyahu. Let's just call him George N. That is interesting to 99% of anyone in this thing. I think he's boring, and I think he should just practice his talks in front of a mirror and do them to himself and stay out of it, because he's boring. And no one's interested, and I'm sorry, he's just not very good at doing his demonstrations, and he sounds like he's easily to ridicule because he mixes things up, he gets his word wrong, he has to start again, and he's talking about a whole bunch of complex stuff which none of us are really, well, very few of us are really interested in, and I don't know, I've only heard about stuff that he's done to other people, but I appreciate in the second episode where you did question him about how he investigated someone in the past, but no, George is no, it's not value for watching time as far as I'm concerned.
Tony, anything to add to that?
It was great to hear you respectfully disagree with me on that previous point. That is the way to disagree with someone. I think that George is fundamentally crazy. I think he's crazy. I think that he takes issue with the Brian Mullen point, and he thinks that people are being unfairly critical about him with the Brian Mullen point. And I think that is the reason why I can't really take him seriously, because at the end of the day, he did try causing a man to lose his job for being wrong on the internet, in his opinion. And at the end of the day, George can't demonstrate the Coriolis point, which is the reason that they were fighting, any better than anybody else can do it on the Ball Earth side. The Coriolis point is another ball earth killer in my view. But the gas pressure point that he was trying to demonstrate, Nathan joined and pointed out that the Carmen line, where Georgia drew his like imaginary line around the thing, isn't actually a container. It's not a barrier. It's not a physical location. It's an arbitrary point that we've decided is the beginning of deep space. And gas pressure doesn't stop there. And Nathan was, even though he was badly presenting himself, he was. Do you want to mute yourself, bud?
Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry.
Even though Nathan was being an arse, I think he was just kind of giving back them a taste of their own medicine by trolling them. I think he was making more of a political point. It doesn't detract from the point that he was making, which the Carmen line is not a container. It's just an arbitrary point that they reference to be the beginning of deep space. Well, okay, that's fine, but George really's got to admit that there is no barrier stopping the gas pressure from. It's the same point with yourself. These barriers don't actually exist, but you're acting as though they do exist, and it's like, come on, guys, we need this point to be addressed. You can't say that there's gas pressure without a container. It is your science.
Well, he did claim a force field. I mean, what did you think of when he actually used the word force field? And I asked him about that specifically. Is that what's holding the gas in? And he said yes. I mean,
there's no science for a force field. Let's be honest. I think he's just ad-libbing his own interpretation to whatever he perceives is going on. But that force field can't exist without a container. However, I mean,
there's
where's
no
the science
for a container either, right? There's no science for a container either, Riley. So,
well, we do have gas pressure, and the necessary antecedent for gas pressure is containment by its own definition, right?
Force field probably perhaps the wrong word to use, but it makes more sense to me than a container. So let's not.
Well, then you've got to deny that gas pressure is caused by containers.
I do. You can get lots of gas pressures, but you guys deny them. You don't. You don't. Anyway, let's not go down that road. Let's stop.
Okay. So the next show we had was a chit chat. So this time I allowed the globe earthers to come in, and this was the Rumpus that came in and Dean, and that was the show that they brought in their 10 questions for flat earthers to answer. You know, it was essentially a rebuttal to the questions that Nathan puts out in his housekeeping questions. So we can call it Globe Earth Housekeeping. So what did you think of the questions firstly, Aaron? Did you get a chance to see them?
No, I only got through maybe one or two, and then I think people were saying that it might have been you, Ranty, or someone else had saying that you'd already been able to answer number 2. So look, that's probably one of the episodes that I missed the most of, and don't really have much to comment on. I think what I could say is why this all comes from Nathan's housekeeping questions, which have apparently been attributed to Riley as being a good idea. Everyone knows, both flat earthers and globe earthers knows, that they're not answerable. They're worded in such a way that unless we build an identical Earth and have it as a big operational model beside our Earth, that we can't demonstrate them. We're not idiots. We know why they're worded that way. We know why you've done that.
Yeah, but you understand though that science that's not capable of demonstration through experiments by definition is pseudoscience, right?
No, I don't agree with that at all, but let's not go down that road. I disagree with you wholeheartedly that science without experimentation is pseudoscience. I know you're going to go with your definite, but we're not going down that road, mate. Just let me tell you that I disagree with you. Let's move on. The housekeeping rules.
We can move on. We can move on.
You can always. Hang on. You always talk about. No. You hang on. You always talk about demonstration. Demonstrate this. Demonstrate that. You know full well that we can't demonstrate it. We can't demonstrate it on the other end of a PC computer. We can't demonstrate it in a small lab. We would have to build ginormous models of what we're doing, life-size models of the Earth to be able to demonstrate it. You guys know that, but you still demonstrate it. Citation.
Well, that's the point.
You're very clever men.
Right, the definition of pseudoscience is based on not adhering to scientific method. Now, if you're going to deny that that is the definition, then that's another denial of current science that you're guilty of.
Don't tell me I'm guilty of anything. There's two things. There's scientific method, and there's science. Scientific method falls within science. So you guys mix those up freely. We understand that the scientific method involves experiments, but science doesn't have to involve experiments. And we'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to, as you said, we're not going to go, you can't convince me of the stuff just by saying it over and over and over again. So I'm telling you, that's my stance. You tell me your stance, and then we'll move on. The questions, back to the questions, I'm not sure why they did that. I think Dean is Stingray. I think he's left the scene because he's been spending way too much time and he's kind of basically given up because he's another very bright man who knows a lot of stuff about a lot of different things. And all of his arguments go nowhere. So I don't think the questions will go any further. I don't think anyone's going to really push them at all.
I'm just going to do a shout out to Plain Reality, who makes another statement, who says, but that is the point. The model is unfalsifiable. That's bull.
Yeah.
If you can't demonstrate, then don't state it's fact.
Yeah, that is my point. I mean, Ranty, I've sent you in Skype the definition that our friend here doesn't want to accept, but it needs to be demonstrated on screen that that is the definition of fake science. Now, I know you might not accept it, but when I tell you that if you don't adhere to scientific method, by virtue of that definition, which is your own definition, it's not mine, it's not cherry-picked, that is the definition of fake science.
Riley, you do know that there's, for every of your 10 things about the scientific method, you do know that other globe earthers have given you at least another 10, or just extended your definitions on past where you stopped reading to show that it doesn't have to involve experimentation.
All right, but so, you're making a point now that
Don't act the idiot.
You're making a point now that I've not made. Ranty, would you mind sticking it on screen for the benefit of your audience? I want them to see the definition so that they know that it is the definition of pseudoscience. I'm not making a point about going further into scientific method. I'm making the general point that if you don't adhere to scientific method with your beliefs, then you are practicing pseudoscience, and that's not a credible position to be when you're going to argue against gas pressure, for example, or gravity.
Go ahead, you're up. A collection of beliefs or practice mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method. There we go.
Yeah, but again, you talked about scientific method and not science.
Yeah, because if it's not based on scientific method, it's not science.
They're not scientific method involves... Anyway, let's just leave it at that, because you've had this argument.
No, let's not agree.
Before.
Let's not agree.
No, you've had this argument with people hundreds of times. You're very firm on what you're saying, and I'm telling you, at my point, I disagree with what you're saying.
Okay, but I'm pointing out to you that, like when you disagreed with me that you need a container to have gas pressure, you're now disagreeing with me with the definition of pseudoscience, even though it's literally in front of your face. And I'm sure if I got Einstein's definition of gravitation up through the general law, the general theory of relativity, then you would also disagree with that too. So I've got to ask myself the question, am I dealing with somebody that's intellectually honest here, or am I dealing with another Brenda that's just deny?
Well, one thing I would say, and I just want to intersect here, is you know, I would agree to a certain point there, Tony. It's like the definition is specifically pointed out in black and white what the definition of pseudoscience is. And then Aaron, you just offhandedly said, I just disagree with you, even though that's the science, even though that's in black and white what the method is. You know, I don't understand why you would disagree when that is what the claim is. The claim is in black and white. You can just research it anywhere. That's true. Does that make any sense?
Okay. Sure, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I'll change what I said. My apologies, guys. At this point, I'm not 100% sure of what you're saying as 100% true. So I'll go look into it some more.
Okay, that seems fair enough.
Riley, can you please tell me what the container is that holds everything in to give us the atmospheric pressure?
I have no idea what the container is. I just realised that we can only have gas pressure. Because we don't have any money to go and look. Listen, I just accept the
You
definition.
don't need
by
any
science.
money, mate.
I
You don't need
accept
any money.
Listen, I accept the definition by your science that tells me to have gas pressure, you must have a container. But you don't seem to accept
that's
any of the
not-
definitions by your own science because it doesn't suit your narrative. Well, that's okay. You can reject that if you want. But at least if I point it out to you and you're aware, then it kind of makes you look a little bit insincere if you're just going to flippantly flip it off.
Okay, and Aaron, can you round up this point by closing this one point off? Cheers.
Look, I'm certainly not insincere. I'm not an insincere person. I don't come here to flip things off. I've come here to help out Randy because I knew that he was working really hard and he was looking for someone. I thought it would be fun. This is the level that I'm at. I don't have a lot of interest because it's not my daily business. This is not what I do for a living. I'm not someone who can sit and develop arguments or use their words as cuttingly as they possibly can. I've come in to say this is what I believe and this is why I believe it. I have a lot of faith in science. I have a lot of trust in what other people say. So I don't have to challenge that anymore. If that's seen as insincere, then my apologies. That's not how I've wanted to come across. I certainly have a level. I'm far more interested in the personalities around flat Earth versus spherical Earth than I am around the actual science behind it. But what I do not appreciate, and I'll be very clear as I round this off, I do not appreciate flat earthers saying, well, I believe it up to this point and I can argue to this point, but anything after that, I'm not going to commit to anything because I don't know. That's being half-assed. The other thing that I really want to say is I am in the healthcare profession and I've worked with a lot of very, very intelligent people who've spent, finished school at 20, gone to university until they're 35 or 40, have done their doctorate. Regardless of whether I agree with them or disagree with them, show those people some respect. The fact that you guys go around and call George Musa, Professor George Musa, Georgie fucking Musa, and degrade his station in life is absolutely disgusting and you should be ashamed of yourselves. Absolutely appalling behaviour. Just, if you don't agree with them, don't agree with them, but don't ridicule them.
Okay.
It's not cool.
Okay, well, thanks for your opinion on that. I do appreciate all opinions here. I'm not going to disagree with anything you've said. Moving ahead, you did say that you wanted to look at the personalities inside of Flat Earth. Well, funnily enough, the next show I had was with one Mark Sargent. How do you perceive Mark Sargent? Firstly, Aaron.
Look, I didn't come into Flat Earth via Mark Sargent. I came in via Nathan Oakley, actually. I do kind of understand that he's been around a long time and he's kind of got this level of respect. But I don't think he's moved very far in his belief system. He's certainly not a Riley, is he? He's not challenging science or anything. He's just happy to sit and be Mark Sargent. This is a pretty weird analogy, but many years ago I used to run a electronic record label, and we used to release CDs from people all around the world, and we kind of realized in the advent of being able to burn CDs that it was a waste of money. We might burn 1,000 CDs, but we'd only sell 200 because one person would buy it and burn 10 copies for their friends. So what we ended up doing is not releasing any music and just being these people that would be asked to tour the world to play our music. And that's kind of what Mark Sargent is. He's not really doing anything or releasing anything. He's just got a life being Mark Sargent and going to conferences and talking. And I don't find him very interesting. I think it was a great coup for you to have him on your show, because I know a lot of people would have watched the show to watch him. But no, he does nothing for me. In fact, I fell asleep listening to some Flat Earth channel, and I ended up waking up where he was doing a talk at a conference where he was talking about being contacted by a physicist at Penn State University, and they had, you know, he had the opportunity to ask them 5 questions, and they came back and they had no answer, and it just comes off as a big fat lie. No physicist at any Penn State University would have contacted him, and if he did ask them why moonlight was colder, they wouldn't have come back and said, no, we have no idea. It's just all a big load of bullshit. It's just a big lie. So, no, I don't like him, and I didn't really like the talk, but congratulations on you for being popular enough for him to talk with you. I thought it was good for your channel, but I'm not impressed by him at all.
Okay, Tony. Well, obviously, that's from the Globe Earther side of things. What did you think, Tony?
Remind me, what point were we on?
Mark Sargent came on the show.
It wasn't really a contentious disagreement, was it? It was just a chit chat. I thought Mark Sargent. I like Mark, and I think he gets a hard press from too many people on both sides. I don't see him as dishonest. I think that some of the things he does are a bit odd, but it's probably because it's my own ignorance about him, because I don't really know anything about him. But I listened to all of it, and I didn't really have anything other than it was just entertaining listening to. That was really it, really.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it was like I didn't know how the interview was going to go, sort of thing. The chit chat was going to go. It was pretty evident pretty quickly with it, because I phoned him 10 minutes or so before the show started. So pretty much immediately, you know, he was dead easy to get along with. You know, I think he relaxed as well. I mean, I got a few emails from people saying that seems to be one of the most relaxed that they've ever seen Mark Sargent on a hangout or a chit chat. So. It was interesting to do that, and interesting to hear his side of things, how he perceives himself inside the flat Earth, which is to be sort of like to encourage people to look into flat Earth, and then, as he says it, sort of like leave it up to channels like ours to sort of encourage them to look into it even deeper. So it was really interesting. I thought so anyway. Moving on, because we're trying to squeeze in. I want to get this show finished in about 10 minutes. So we had another Flat Earth chit chat. I can't remember what actually happened on that. I'm just trying to think that one. That was supposed to be the Aftermath show, but I think it went downhill. So that would have been when the rumpus rumpused me. Yeah, because he didn't let us talk, did he? Do you remember? Never mind. So
it was rumpus. Wasn't it rumpus against Duke?
I'm trying to think now. It was a Flat Earth chit chat again. I can't remember the actual show, so to be fair, I'm just going to have to probably skip through that one, because I could be wrong. So misconceptions and missed gas points. So this was when George Netanyahu came back. Now, prior to the show just going live, George had messaged me and said he was happy to do the presentation, and if you wanted to bring someone on the panel to ask him questions during his presentation, that would be fine. So it was something completely new. We were up to roundtable 19, so this was roundtable presentation. So the previous 18 had just been one person talk to the chat, and this particular time George had suggested bringing somebody in to discuss with him. So I'd already agreed with Spurs Chemo to have him come in, because obviously this is his topic. The problem was, just before we went live, and I mentioned this to George and said, I'll be bringing in Spurs, that'll be the guy that will be talking to you about this. He went, no, that'll be the last person I want to speak to. He didn't want anything to do with Spurs Chemo, so I was like, oh, right, okay. So I asked Right the Hand, and Right the Hand said he would, and that's when Right the Hand came in, and it's also the same time that Nathan Oakley jumped in at 1.2, so it was very difficult to keep to keep George actually from rage quitting, because he was, sort of like jumped upon. How did you think that went?
I think that Right Hand's ability to disagree with people is lacking, and I think that he's very loose with his tongue. And although I agree with him that he won the Brenda one, I think that when you accuse Karen B of basically a repeat of Patricia, and then basically get told that she's given biological birth to a daughter that is an identical copy of her, it's a mini me, and he still thinks that could be cheated somehow, and then carries on. I think that is showing Right Hand is just scum, And as far as I'm concerned, I have no further dealings with him, and I think that he should be ignored by everybody, and we shouldn't even mention his name again, to be honest.
And you, Aaron, how did you feel that show went?
I'm in absolute shock that I've agreed with Riley about something. I just wondered why it took for him to for Right the Hand to pick on a flat earther for it to trigger that kind of emotion rather than picking on Brenda. But anyway, the end goal is the same. Right the Hand is a disgusting human being who is absolutely full of himself, and after his so-called victory with Brenda and everyone sitting around laughing and chuckling and thinking how clever they all were, he tried to have another go, and it's he's just shown himself up to be quite a despicable human. Very hard to listen to George again, because he's just an old fuddy-duddy. I mean, he just needs to now retire. He's given her his best shot, but it's not the scene for him. He can just sit back in the chat and abuse people or whatever he does, but it was impossible to watch another session from him. And then I missed Nathan in that, actually. I'll have to go back and listen to that, but Right the Hand, and then for Right the Hand to follow on with his application of gas law, which I'm assuming we'll talk about next, was just too much for me, but I listened to it anyway.
I'll read this super chat out, although it's nothing to do with the show. So, anybody in the chat, can anyone answer how long it would take to travel from one side of Antarctica to the other? So that's B-Ball for life. So if anybody wants to try and answer that question, go ahead. In the meantime,
how could you calculate how long it would take to travel one side to the other if we don't even know whether it's a ring that goes around the outside that's caused by the sun failing to keep the water in its liquid state and allowing it to form a barrier of ice, compared to whether it's a continental island that they tell us is at the bottom of a sphere. We don't even know its shape, so how could we ever calculate it without knowing its shape? And that's one of the contentious points.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Riley, they have mapped its shape. We do know where it is. Riley, you can't say that we don't know where it is and what shape it is.
I didn't say we didn't know where it was. I said that we didn't know what shape it was, because it's either the ring that goes around the outside of the dartboard, or it's a continent at the bottom of a ball. But that's the contentious point.
It's a continent. It's not. It's not a contentious point. It's an island at the bottom of the ball.
It's an island at the bottom. You can't even prove it's a ball. So how can you say that with any authority? Well, hang on. There's no point asking these questions, because if I show you something that contradicts your opinion, you'll just dismiss it like you did with the other 3 points.
And so do you, mate. You're saying that it might be an ice ring around the edge of the thing. We know it's not, because we have people that go there.
No, you believe it.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Yeah, we do. So we do know it.
Okay, so
hang on. You can't say let's move on and then go, yeah, you do. Yeah, we do.
Okay, well, I can do that. Apologies if you don't like it, but I can do it. We do know where it is, but that's not the point. So let's move on. And you'll say, that's okay, Aaron. We don't know where it is. Let's move on.
Are we moving on? Right, moving on.
Yeah, we're good.
Depends on whether he wants to add anything to it before we move on, I guess.
So, moving on. So, moving on. Right after George, in fact, pretty quick after George, we had Right the Hand waiting in the wings to do a presentation. Now, he came on right at the end of George's and reminded me to hurry the hell up, which I did. We rounded up George's show. Got Right the Hand on, and then I allowed the same scenario to happen. So I allowed Globe Earthers to come in just after he finished his presentation and tackle him there and then about his presentation. Now, in this particular case, I invited the Rumpus and George Netanyahu back. So whereas George had just been on before and had Right the Hand jump on him, this time I reversed the roles and allowed for George and the Rumpus to come in, and I would say within 10 minutes or so, Right the Hand actually quit and left. So did any of you see that?
I thought Right the Hand had no other choice but to leave, because it's 2v1.
Yeah, it was. Shout out to Contraption, who says, Ranty rocking the Casbah, shaking those jello trees, flatten the rotten fruit. Thank you very much for the super chat. Go ahead. So what did you think? Did you get a chance to see that, Aaron? Did you think it was like pay? Was it payback, do you think?
No, I didn't. Look, anything with Rumpus in it is just a shit show. So I'm surprised that you and Riley thought it was unbalanced at 2-1. You can just cancel George out totally because he's not anyone near capable of arguing with Right the Hand or with Rumpus.
Yeah, but don't forget though, George had just had his hangout and he'd been rumpused by Nathan, and I think it was just payback to Ranty by bringing Rumpus in just to deliberately rumpus the hangout. I think that was George's payback.
Oh, sorry, I didn't follow that. How was that? It was George got paid back, or George paid Right the Hand back?
That hangout followed George's previous hangout where Nathan and numerous other people joined, and basically Nathan had deliberately and overtly gone out of his way to rumpus George. I think that George had picked up Ranty's payback by inviting Rumpus in and having a 2v1 with one of the two worst people to disagree on the topic, Right the Hand being the other, knowing that that's just going to be a massive shit show, and I think that was payback from George's perspective.
Oh, look, I don't think George is capable of even thinking that fast and that clearly to think that might possibly work. Anything with Rumpus in it at the moment is a disaster.
I'm gonna hold my hand up. I'm gonna hold my hand up and say I asked the Rumpus and George in Skype if they wanted to join whilst Right the Hand was doing his presentation, because I wanted to even score up. I saw that it was a little too, Right the Hand was a little, well, more than a little too strong for George in his application of this debate, and I knew that getting the Rumpus in with George would kind of even things up, so I'm going to hold my hands up and say that's what I did. I expected Right the Hand to stay around for a bit longer, though. I thought he would have debated harder than he did, but he left pretty quick. But, I suppose that's the Rumpus for you. He doesn't give you a minute to think, does he? But hopefully he'll give us a minute to think later on tonight when we're doing a different format. Anyway, lastly, so essentially we did the Tour-a-thon. They were the last two videos that I did. Did any of you...
Sorry, Ranty. Can we just go back to Right the Hand's presentation? I just have a point I want to make about, he's talking about this PSI and how you can't measure it and all that sort of stuff. I don't get why that is a point. If you guys can explain to me what PSI has anything to, and how you measure it and how it came about and why it's 14.7, if you can describe or explain to me why that has anything to do with the shape of the Earth, then please let me know, because as far as I'm concerned, Spurkismo is actually a flat earther now, and he has thrown this in, and he continues to throw it in because he's sitting back and laughing his ass off at how everyone is scrambling to come up with an answer. Or he's a very bright man as well. I kind of imagine Spurkismo and Rumpus as two very rich English boys who are brought up in a manor. They're highly educated. They never had to do anything. They've never had to work a day in their life. And they sit in these two separate rooms in this manor, and they just work out how they're going to disrupt any discussion when it comes to whether the Earth is flat or spherical. I don't get why this PSI thing is just exploded. 99% of spherical earthers and flat earthers all agree that there's a pressure gradient and that we have pressure. Regardless of whether it's a container or not, we all agree that there's pressure. I don't get why Right the Hand had this huge big rant on about 14 psi and why it exists or why it doesn't exist. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Anything to add there, Tony? No, he's on mute. No, I think it's not. Oh, are you back there, Tony?
Yeah, sorry, I heard my name. What was the question?
We're just talking about Right the Hand and Spurs, and about this pressure thing, pressure, no pressure. What do you think?
I think Spurs' point that Spurs is making a really hash of trying to get across to people is that if space doesn't exist the way we're told, and we don't live in a closed system because it's an open system, rockets can leave and come and go and stuff. I think his point is that we can't have gas pressure in an open system. And if space isn't the way we're being told, then it means that we haven't got gas pressure. We must be breathing somewhere else. Where did he get the value of 14.7 from if it's not deep space, which he accepts doesn't exist the way we're told? In other words, is the starting point absolute zero in terms of space, and therefore we've grossed it up? And because he can't articulate himself very well, because he's trying to work out what he even means himself, I think that he's just coming a cropper at his own inability to particularize his point. I think sometimes some of the points he makes are legitimate and are worthy of question, but I think that when he refuses to accept Nathan's point today, like by virtue of having a pressure differential means there must have been pressure in the first place. I mean, that's blatantly obvious, isn't it? And he should be conceding that, but he's not doing that. He's obviously got a seed planted from somewhere, and he's following it through to its bitter end. And eventually, I think he'll end up conceding the point. But for the moment, he's still got this perception. And I write the hands. I don't know. I don't know is the honest answer. I just wish that he would either come to a conclusion quickly and either concede or articulate himself well enough so that basically we get the point that he's trying to make. It's difficult to understand Spurs' point, so.
Okay, so
I don't think you were. I'm not sure you were listening to me, Riley. You're probably off doing something else, and I'm sorry that I bore you. But I think a large percentage of round earthers believe that Spurkismo is a round earther, and he's just out there causing the shit show.
Okay.
I have no citation for that.
I don't know. I don't know what ball earthers think. If you say they think that, I'll accept that they think that. I don't know.
Okay, right, moving on. I did a show this week, slightly inebriated. I was supposed to do an 11 o'clock stint for the Globe Live tour, and internet went down, so I wasn't supposed to get the internet back. So my slot had, basically I got in touch with them and said on my phone and said, look, I can't do the show tonight. You're going to have to find someone to step in. So I went out, had a few beers, came back, had some more beers. Saw that the internet was on and thought, I'll go up and watch one of the shows. I think it was around about 10 o'clock or something. And only to find out that still nobody had taken the 11 p.m. slot. So I quickly said, I can do it. I've got internet back, pretty drunk. But I thought, I've got a video to play. It's not a problem. But then when my slot started and OBS wasn't working and I couldn't get the sound to feed through, I had to do a presentation fairly drunk. So yeah, that was interesting. So that was that show. I don't know if you saw it, how I came across.
Hey man, it was good. It was good to see another relaxed side of you having fun. So yeah, I think it was nice to hear that you'd been out to the pubby, which is a term we don't use in Australia, but out to the pubby with your missus to have some food and some beers. So yeah, I think it was good. I'm glad you had a good time.
I did. I suffered for it the next day because I still had to do another show the following. I'd already agreed to do another hour in the afternoon, and I've got these two lights that are facing me, and they've got these umbrellas on the other side of them, so they all light up. And of course, there's me with a hangover, so I had to wear sunglasses to try and, not give me such a headache. But there we go. So they were the last two shows that I did. And so yeah, guys, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to wrap this show up because I have another show starting in less than an hour. So in less than an hour, we're going to have Sleeping Warrior back for the first ever roundtable court, where we're bringing the Rumpus into court, and he is going to have his toes held to the fire by Sleeping Warrior. Sleeping Warrior, do you want to remind people what this claim is?
Well, Rumpus is cornered by his own science. He's made a contradictory statement. And basically, I want to demonstrate that Rumpus is cornered, and I want to see how he weasels his way out of it, because he can't get out of it. He's stuck. It's like, well, it's like denying that you need containment to have gas pressure. He's literally got his own science against him, and I want to see how he wiggles his way out of it.
Well, I'm gonna try my best. I'm gonna try and be the judge in this. We're gonna try and keep Rumpus on task. We don't want him obfuscating any points. We don't want him going down any alleyways to try and escape the main question down the high street. We literally want him to face the questions head on, answer them as concisely and honestly as he possibly can. We're not asking for a lot. It sounds like it does sound like the most ridiculous thing, the lengths you have to go to try and just get these debaters, quote unquote debaters, because people are master debaters in this arena, to actually get them to just answer a question. It is that difficult. I mean, just the Skype conversation to actually clear up exactly what we need from Rumpus and how the format's going to be. It's dead easy. Just answer a question. It's so simple. It can't be any easier than that. Answer the question as honestly as possible. No obfuscation. No looking for any routes. No looking for where this may be going. Just be honest. Crikey, I mean, I'd answer questions. Tony, you answer questions. I bet if I asked you a question, Aaron, you'd answer a question too. But the Globers in this arena, when we have these debates, always seem to know the routes that we're trying to take to try and get them in a position where they have to answer a very tricky question. So, anyway, we'll see how that goes. Aaron, it has been a pleasure. How did you enjoy your first experience on the after show?
I thought it was, look, I don't know. I'll have to go back and have a think about it. It would have been, look, I've had a great time. So thank you very much for the invitation, Ranty. If you ever want me to come back, you know what I'm capable of. Anthony, thank you for your input. I know that you're off doing something else because I bore you and you're not even listening, but good luck tonight or this morning for me trying to contain the Rumpus. I think it's a bad idea because he's not containable, but I really hope it works out, and I think the court idea is a great idea. So I've appreciated it and feel quite chuffed to have spoken to you both personally. I can tick that off my bucket list, and I'll just keep watching. So see you later.
Thank you very much. And Tony, thanks for stopping by, mate. You better get yourself ready for this next show.
I'm all ready to go. I was born ready.
Born ready, right. Well, you better put your phone on charge or something then. Right.
No worries.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up now, guys, and I'll see you all in 45 minutes. Tune in for the first round table court. See you soon.